Join me, your host, Sean Lynn, in the pub for a dram with friends, where we talk about faith, family, food, and fun. Pull up a chair and I'll pour you a drink. Episode 18. We welcome Bear Woznick into our pub, taking the long ride home. Sit back as I pour us a dram. Welcome to another episode of A Dram with Friends. We are very excited to have in the pub today Bear Woznick, who's all the way in Hawaii coming to the pub. Welcome, Bear.
Aloha, Sean. I like that book, Drinking with Saints. I have the same one.
Oh, do you? Yeah, I interviewed him recently. Actually, he's the episode that just aired this past Thursday at 3 p.m. on YouTube channel, and it will.
You better send me his contact information.
Sorry, what's that?
Send me his contact information. I want to interview him for my show. I
will do that. But first, we got to pour a dram. And you were saying you're a bourbon guy. Well, you said Tennessee Mash.
I think this is good old Jack Daniels.
Well, I went and got myself. It was on sale yesterday. And I have had the privilege on the top shelf behind me. There's a bottle that I dipped myself in 2010 at Maker's Mark. So
what? So did I.
You did too.
Yeah, we were in the same place. I was there, maybe it was 2 years ago, but it's pretty cool. You get to make your own Maker's Mark, right?
Yes. Do they still have the label of Founders Club on it? I
don't remember because I don't think I've drank it yet, but I don't have it here. I don't think I've opened it up yet, but wasn't that cool to get to do that?
It was, and I was there with my family, and it's a cool area named Loretto, after the Sisters of Loretto, and it's not far from the Abbey of Gethsemane. I don't know if you had a chance to stop by there.
We were cruising through there. Sue's dad used to live there in that area of Kentucky, and while we were there, the Jim Beam distillery, I think we stopped in there too. And when we left, maybe you heard about the big fire that the whole barn of whiskey barrels, the barn burned down. And they all blew up and went down went down the prairie there. We had been there the day before, so a lot of people think it was me, but we didn't do that.
You did put out your cigar properly before you left, right?
Before we arrived.
So, who is Bear Woznick?
There I was, blonde, blue-eyed, bronzed, and in my prime. That's I tell my good friend Crazy Todd. You saw him at the beach down here. I coached him to do that. He's a big wave rider, and he should be famous, but no one ever heard of him. But then I kind of made him famous. But I'll tell you what it is. I had an experience, a strong conversion when I was 19 years old, and ever since then I've just been sold out on the adventure of knowing Jesus. Been through my seasons, and I'm sure there's more to come of as God worked and dealt with me. Times of so many different, like so many people, we're all kind of Rocky Balboa, right? So I've gone through a lot of different times of discouragement and feeling not necessarily feeling God's presence and so many different challenges, but through it all, God's been faithful to me. And I'm like you, I just can hardly wait to share the gospel, the real gritty, real gospel with someone every day. I'm like a kind of a mini me of you, I hope.
we can all aspire, right? You are a world famous surfer. I've got a daughter that called us last week and said she tried surfing but I'm guessing it's too cold for you there in Ireland to surf.
When she was in Ireland, oh yeah, no, I should show you. I'm going to try to show you where I am without disrupting my camera too much.
That looks like the rough life, Bear.
And if you can see, you probably can't. Down below is the Catholic Church, right next to me, and the St. Damien, St. Marianne, kind of like museum, which has never opened. They got it all ready, and then the COVID thing hit, but it's right next to our house. I mean, it's within, I don't know, it's just really close to our house, put it that way. So yeah, we're really blessed. My wife and I just did a nice long, we do try to swim about a mile every day out in the ocean to keep healthy. And we just chased around what we call a Honu, a sea turtle, for a little while, chasing them around to keep you in shape. But we were just down in that reef right there. It's you know, that reef is so unique. You know, the volcano flowed into there, and then the coral kind of attached to that volcanic flow. So there's all kinds of little lava tubes and little caves and cliffs, and we've really gotten to know. We know right where to go to look for there's a little Honu, a little sea turtle likes to sleep in a certain area, and we know the different types of fish, like the Hawaiian state fish, the humu humu nuku nuku apua'a. We'll see that.
That's easy for you to say.
But that's the way, but we know that reef, and that's the way I think as Christians, as Catholics, we need to know our faith. We need to know all the nook and crannies and all the little hidden treasures, all the little, as Cindy calls them, the little hidey holes of our Catholic faith, and really explore, dive in head first and really enjoy our faith.
And you use the ocean as the metaphor there, and I've heard it said that it's shallow enough to wade in and deep enough to drown us. So there's
Amen.
So much,
and it's so wide. Like here in Hawaii, you can swim in the shallow end if you want to. In fact, right in front of our house, there's like a little, almost like a wading area where children can play in. And I had wandered from the Catholic faith, Sean, for maybe 10 to 15 years. I really had a strong conversion within the church, but I had not been catechized. I wasn't introduced to the early church fathers or the deeper teachings of the church. I'd just been introduced to Jesus. And so as I wanted to go deeper, most of my friends were, even though had this great experience in the charismatic renewal as a Catholic, most of the people that I knew were going deeper with the Lord were Protestant. And so I started reading books that were like 200 years old or newer. And after, I would say after about 10 to 15 years, I was kind of like feeling like, is that all there is? And I'm not saying anything against the beautiful people that I know still from that experience, but I really felt like I was swimming in the shallow end. If you swim out here in Waikiki, if you swim out about 2 miles or maybe 3 at the most, you go out and you go from 5 feet to 10 feet to 20 feet to 2 miles deep. That's what it's like at Catholic Church. The teaching is, you can wade in, you can get comfortable with it, but you can go as deep as you want. And the horizon, we're the most remote place in the world. There's nothing, the horizon of learning, you know, is never ending. So I love being in the Catholic Church. You can never even begin to scratch the surface, you know?
Well, and I call it there's a wide road that, like you talk about the charismatic renewal, and then you've got the people that love the Latin Mass and
Mm-hmm.
everywhere in between, and they're all on the same road, so you can find where you fit.
Right, the Franciscans, the Benedictines, the Trappists, you know, yes, but not like it's like all under the magisterium of the church, all faithfully following the teaching of the church. But you're right. One of the priests I met once said, "So you're more Franciscan because you're so into nature." And I go, "No, I think I'm more Benedictine because I'm a Benedictine Oblate, and I love the Liturgy of the Hour, which he helped to kind of formalize." So, but yeah, he would when he gets to know people, he'll say, "Oh, you're more this and you're more that." He actually can see that, like you're more of a Aquinas, or you're more of an Augustine, So yeah, our faith is so deep and so rich.
Yeah, I don't think I'm quite to those intellect. I try to be the Joseph, the guy that's out there being the protector, provider for my family, and leading those. I interviewed a friend, Andre Renier, and they had brought over the relic of Saint Francis Xavier, the hand of Saint Francis Xavier, and toured the country with it, and that instilled in the imagination just that evangelization. And so every time I put on my vest, because I touch my motorcycle vest to that hand, so every time I put on that motorcycle vest, I can draw from that image of Saint Francis Xavier and that evangelization that he did.
Yeah, he was bold and he was wise, and God used him. And I know that you're an evangelist. You and I both have that fervor to win souls for Christ. You do it through barbecues and just who you are. I mean, by your very nature, there's something about you. I know when I met you, I said, I got to get to know this guy better. And I know a lot of people who aren't Christian or aren't Catholic, or people that are searching, they see something powerful in you and something. The thing about you, Sean, is you're very comfortable with who you are. And that's what Christ does, because Christ fills us kind of like with the sap, of what type of tree we are. And when we don't have Jesus, we really don't know who we really are, because we haven't seen ourselves come fully alive. But you are very, very true to who you are and how God has made you. You're very comfortable with yourself. And that makes people feel comfortable with themselves, and it makes them feel approachable, so that you can share with them the gospel, not just a barbecue sandwich,
Or in COVID, when I'm not allowed to be barbecuing for people, or too many, I'm reaching out with the other tools that God has provided me with, a little Dram, and that's how this came to be. Because
I hope you keep this going. This is just you. This is just great. We need more of this.
And it's funny how God works. We talk about that calling, or I was renovating this because I was working out of the basement for a while during COVID at the beginning. And we were trying to get this ready. In Alberta, when you turn 18, you're legally allowed to go out and drink. And our daughter was turning 18 in April. So we wanted to create a pub atmosphere for her to go to the pub for her first legal drink.
Oh, that's cool.
And
that's so cool, Sean. That's so cool. Well, what are those books next to you?
Books.
I love all the books.
Well, let me.
Those just for looks? Are those just for looks?
No. I'm.
Hey, look it. You got to make sure and tell our friend Jeff I've got his Bible right here.
Well, I too have the Bible, but yes, I created a bookshelf here. Peter
I love your
is
book.
Probably one of my favorites, but
what is one of your favorites?
Peter Kreeft.
Me too.
I probably have given away more of his books than I have. So
I could surfer.
Well, yeah, I can see where you would love him, because he's written 2 or 3 about surfing.
Yeah.
I've got one here.
I wrote one of them, one called Deep in the Wave, a surfing guide to the soul. But I love Peter. You know why? Because he explains things so I can understand him. And he's just one of my favorite people. You got to get him. I've interviewed him a couple of times. He's really hard to get a hold of, though. In 10 years, I've only gotten to interview him twice. But
well, I've been in conversation. We've had him here for a God Squad conference back in 2010. He was supposed to be coming up this next March, but we'll see where we're at in the world, whether we're virtual or live and in person. But
oh, that's so cool. You get to spend I've never actually met him in person. That's so cool. What we gotta do is tell the people that are watching this to tell Sean to let me come out and do a God Squad conference. I want to go. I want to come to Calgary.
It could still be cold here, in March. It's still, we get snow. Our very first conference, we had a record snowfall just 3 days before, where it was something almost apocalyptic. So it's
Do I have to wear something other than my flip-flops then if I come?
most likely. The beautiful thing about Calgary is we can
Why
have
do you
it.
do it in March then? Why do you do it in March?
Okay, I don't know if you've heard of this saint that's here on the wall behind me, Saint Joseph. His feast day is March 14th, and he
I've
is
heard of him.
my buddy through thick and thin, and we always try to be as close as we can to the feast day of Saint Joseph.
Yeah, I'm going this year. I'm leaving Hawaii in March to give a couple of talks on the mainland. One is in Charlotte, one's in San Diego, though. It's not like going to Canada yet, but I always tend to get booked in March to go to all those freezing cold. I'm not a wimp, I can handle it.
Hey, nobody said you were. You're just choosing the warmth.
No, but I would love to come. But you know what? The thing about you guys, you and Jeff and your pack, man, you guys ride 800 miles like it's like that would be a major event in most bikers' lives. You guys do that routinely, and then you get someplace and you get off and you preach and evangelize at a church.
Yeah, we've had lots of fun. Well, when I met you last summer, well, I guess it's a summer and a half ago.
Yeah,
it was in Michigan, and to start that trip, I was going to get my iron butt, and I rode 1,207 miles the first day.
that's how you started. That's just incredible. I mean, like when we shoot, people maybe didn't know. We have a TV show on Prime Video, Armed Forces Network, and of course, primarily on EWTN, Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick. When we shoot, it's really tough because we're going maybe 300 to 500 miles, but we're stopping and filming constantly. And it's really tough for me because I'm the producer of the show, the writer of the show, and we pull in someplace, and all the guys in the cars pull in and they keep their windows all rolled up and they're sitting in their air-conditioned cars, and us bikers out in 100-degree heat, suffering. And I roll around and go, rule is roll all your windows down so I can see where you are, because we're going to head out. We're going to leave someone in the bathroom who we thought was in the car. We'll leave them behind. We did that more than once, but it's pretty rugged. It's the hardest thing I've ever done is film Long Ride Home. But the longest I think I've ridden at one time is a little over 500 miles. And you did well over twice that.
Well, and I wasn't trying to film. I was just trying to get from point A to point B.
Did you leave in the dark and end in the dark?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I rode from Calgary, Alberta to Sioux Falls, South Dakota in one day. So,
Please invite me to come. I want to be there. I'll come just for a little cigar smoke at a barbecue. I just want to hang out with you. I'm going to be there in September in Regina. Just
and we're going to try and see if we can arrange something to have you stop by in Calgary. It's only 8 hours
Calgary's
away.
the place, man. Calgary's the place. The Calgary Stampede. You got a great football team there. In fact, one of my friends' sons, Chad Owens, played for you guys.
Okay, yeah.
He was the great punt returner.
I remember.
He played here for the Warriors, and so I followed the Stampede for a little while he was playing there. So I want to. My wife was a rodeo girl. Did you know that?
That's what you were saying. Yes.
Show rides and everything else. So she needs to come. She needs to come up there and check it out. We'll go horseback riding. We'll go Harley riding and then horseback riding.
Okay. It's been a long time since I've been on a horse, so we'll see. I had a bad experience as a kid. There was an ornery Shetland pony at my grandpa's farm that I was riding, and it took me right into the barbed wire fence, and I still have the scars to prove that
they can be mean, can't they?
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Cindy, her horse used to run under tree limbs to try to knock her off.
So, Bear, what you winter in Hawaii, do you, and then summer in
Well,
Florida?
no, I moved. It was interesting. I used to go surf events in Florida. They would invite me over there. The world tour was there of tandem surfing, which, by the way, is where I left my wife in overhead, really extreme lifts. Anyway, I used to go there and compete. And then when things were kind of moving in the ministry, I thought I should maybe I should have a little place here so I can launch my ministry better from the mainland. And I rented a place, and then I met Cindy, and then she became my tandem partner. And what a cool girl. At one point when we first started surfing together, they had us arrive at the contest and jump out of a helicopter into the water. All the competitors thought that they were going to win because it was the finals and we weren't there, right? And all of a sudden this helicopter comes, we jump in and we surfed, and then after we were partners, we became engaged and got married. So, but the more she came to Hawaii, the more she fell in love with Hawaii. And I never sold my home here. I just rented it out. So we just sold our home in Florida, and we live in Hawaii most of the time now. We go to Florida because we have family and friends there, but this is our home. And she's such a great, yeah. So I had a little 6-year kind of hiatus where I was spending a lot of time in Florida, but Hawaii is Hawaii no Ka'oi. Hawaii is where my heart, I've lived here over 20 years.
My wife wants me to take her there. We were hoping to go there this winter, but we'll wait and see with the travel restrictions lift. And
well, when you come, we we have a studio condo right next to us, and we rent that out for about a fourth of what it would cost to stay in the Marriott right next to us. And it's just great, just a great little place. So when you come out, we will show you and give you some fun time, but know that we know you're not here to see us, you're here to see Hawaii. But we share our wheels with people too. Ride my motorcycle.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe rent one, ride with you.
I haven't ridden a motorcycle as rough as a Harley. I know the funny thing, when we ride with Jeff and Father Marius and those guys, the Harleys are the only ones that break down, even the brand new ones. So
my Harley, Sean, I was editing season 3, and I'm trying to get my bike to start. And then season 4 and 5, we filmed here in Hawaii with a different Harley, which runs fine. But then we filmed season 5 and 6, and as you know, you probably saw me in Michigan trying to get I kept having to get new batteries. There's something wrong. We can't figure out what it is. But I've never ridden anything but a Harley. I guess when I first started 20 years ago, I had a Honda Rebel 250 or something. Not very well named. What are you riding?
I had a Honda 250 scooter before I got my bike, so it was.
Yeah, that's where we all start.
Yeah, Jeff and I have a lot. He likes to bug me about my bike. That's why I have to pick on the Harleys a bit, because my Victory, I think it's jealousy on his part personally, but maybe it's just envy. So,
well, they're great bikes. Grady Dyke, and one of our cast members, he rides a Victory bike too.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have problems.
So Bear, one of the segments that I do is, our young men are struggling today figuring out life and where to go, and even what a man is at times. So what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Well, first of all, I think young men want a challenge. I don't think they want something easy. I think they want something that will challenge them. And I don't talk to young men about being masculine. Or masculine spirituality. I talk to them about being manly, and to be a man of virtue, and to spend time learning their faith and going deep with the Lord in prayer. I'm a big fan of the Liturgy of the Hour. Here in Hawaii, you see people out here wearing shirts that say lifeguard. They bought it from Abercrombie and Fitch, and they look like a surfer or a lifeguard, but they're not. We call them posers. And so in time when you're young, 18, you got to figure yourself out. You got to make a decision about who you are and where you're going, because the trajectory of your life, the little decision you make now, if you're good at your trajectory is going to go like that, you're setting yourself up for a long trajectory. If you set your trajectory more like that, more vertical, you know, you could, the gap gets bigger and bigger as time goes on. So set yourself on a path of excellence. If you don't know what you want to do, who cares? You know, you don't have to figure out, well, this is what's going to give me the most enjoyment in life, is doing this or doing that. Anything you do that helps you to become a productive part of society gives you a sense of dignity. Whether you're a welder, or you go to college, or you become a teacher, or a CPA, or a truck driver, construction, whatever that is, you don't have to go find something that's going to fulfill you. Find something that demands a lot out of you, and then give it your best, and grow in the virtues through how diligent you are in study, how diligent you are in your work, and how diligent you are in your prayer. Don't be a poser. Don't go to mass and show up and get the bulletin and go home. Don't be a poser. Don't look like you're a Catholic. Be a Catholic. And so I challenge men like my son Jeremiah. He surfed 85-foot waves out here in Hawaii. You know, I used to think I was a big wave rider, but my friend Todd Robertson down here, I was just talking about earlier, in 2007, he towed my son into 85-foot surf on the North Shore, the biggest day in 40 years. And people ask me, what does it take to be a big wave rider? Well, he and I would paddle out here in Waikiki, and we would dive down like 20 feet and grab a boulder and run underwater. He knows how to hold his breath. He's trained. At sunset, I had the habit of every sunset holding my breath for the 2 minutes and 20 seconds it took for the sun to set, and I would pray during that. And I've paddled my surfboard across the treacherous Molokai Channel, one of the most treacherous channels in the world. It's close to 30 miles, you know. And I tell people, if you can't paddle your board for 20 miles, then don't go out on a big day. You're just being a poser. But we have to train, because there'll come an hour when we're not going to be able to be a poser. We're going to have to be the real thing. So spend like 20 minutes 3 times a day in prayer. Pray the rosary, go to mass, read your catechism every day. Like Father Richard says, no Bible, no breakfast, no Bible, no bed. Live those words. Train yourself in your faith, train yourself in the virtues, and be ready because there's going to come a time in every man's life where you have to be ready, because heroism is going to be required of you. Don't be slothful. Don't be lazy. Don't be waiting for life to come to you. You got to go out and get it. And when you pursue life and you lay down your life in servant leadership, that's very pleasing to God. And remember, God isn't there for what you can get out of him. He's there for you to love him back. The most powerful thing you can do in life is not to say, well, I got to make sure I get myself to heaven, or even lead others to heaven. If you're going to love others, don't love them for their sake or your sake, love them for God's sake. So learn to just love God for who he is and get to know him, and get ready, because if the closer you get to God, the greater the adventures. I've run with the bulls in Pamplona. I've bicycled across the United States. You know, I've skydived. I've done it all. But the greatest adventure is just walking in God's will, and then seeing insurmountable things in your life and watching God overcome them. I just overcame, since I saw you. You didn't know it, but when I saw you, I don't think you knew that I had cancer. And I just went through a whole year of I went through my radiation treatment and all the stuff that went along with it, all the infections and stuff like that. Then I finally got to go out and exercise again, and I ripped a bicep loose. So I just had to get that reattached. But the reason why I was able to endure all of that, and now I'm on the other side and I've got the green light, I'm doing great. That's all behind me. But the reason I was able to endure all that is because I had the momentum of seeking a life of faith and living a life of virtue. When I pedaled my bicycle across the United States, or some years, you know, I have 2 different black belts. I've trained in the martial arts forever. Every year I would set a physical goal for myself, and not just for the sake of reaching that goal, but to train myself in fortitude, in prudence, in self-mastery. So, and the other thing I tell young men is, you got to win the battle against pornography. It'll destroy your soul. You have to win the battle against laziness and sloth. It'll destroy your soul. You've got to win that battle. And the only way you win the battle, those kind of battles, is to fill yourself with Jesus Christ, is to fall so in love with him and have a disciplined approach. I got to take Christian Okoye out surfing here once. He's an all-pro running back for the Chiefs, the Nigerian nightmare, they called him. And he is so buff, he could hardly paddle. I said, Christian, how you get in such good shape? He goes, because every morning people know, don't bother me at 6:30 in the morning. I have an appointment at the gym. Well, people need to keep a daily appointment first thing in the morning. The pattern of the early church has always been, before the sunrise, you pray, and when the sun sets, you stop and pray at a minimum. So they need to develop a life of prayer. You need to develop a life of study. Like when I see that library of yours, I just love it. But I'm kind of disappointed because I thought you were going to ask me if I was a vegetable, what kind of vegetable I would be.
No. And you talk about some good stuff, and there's some great tools out there. Heroicmen.com has a lot of good, solid stuff on it. And you talk about that habit, and Jeff Caven's The Activated Disciple. I led several of my parishioners through that, and just getting into the word every day and getting that daily routine. And
the company of other men.
Yes, it's harder right now because as a lot of our men are zoomed out, but that's why we're trying to reach them here in the pub with whatever means we can. And but when you talked about that trajectory, and I'll never forget the story. My son was flying down to meet his now wife, the parents, and they lived in the LA area, and he got pulled out of the line because he hadn't paid his student visa for going to Ave Maria, which we didn't realize needed to be done. It got missed somewhere in the communication. And he goes, Dad, I was okay because they'd get me on the next flight and stuff. But there was a man in his 50s that was going to take his wife for a cruise, and they wouldn't let him into the US because of something he did when he was 18. And that would be so hard when you're I tell young men, when you're in your 30s or 40s and you want to take your kids to Disney World or Disneyland, and you can't because of something you did today. So just be aware.
Or didn't do.
No,
I tell you what, when I was 17, I was in a high school social studies class, most boring class you could ever imagine. Or maybe it was government, I forget. And the teacher's talking, and I'm just kind of bored to death. But suddenly I had this, I would call it an infusion from the Lord of what it would be like to be a father. That I could actually bring an eternal being into existence. And it was like the whole world changed. It was a paradigm shift for me. And all my decisions from that moment forward were like, how am I going to take care of my kids? Like working 2 or 3 jobs while I was going to college, not going to certain parties, not hanging out with certain people, and, getting good enough grades to be able to get my degree. Have a goal. And as you begin to move, it's like God can't direct. You remember the old days when we had cars that didn't have power steering?
I remember
how hard it was to turn them if it was sitting still. Well, once it started to move, you could easily turn the wheel. That's how God guides you as young men. Pursue a goal, and as you're moving towards it, then be ready for God to redirect your path. But if you're just sitting there dormant, he can't do anything with you.
Yeah.
Don't be a wet noodle. Don't make excuses for yourself. Choose the hard thing. If you have a choice between 2 different things, choose the hard thing. That's usually God's will. And grow and experience your mana, as we say in Hawaii, and your manaho, which is mana is strength, manaho is wisdom, and grow. and experience. Like one of the things right now is for the last 4.5 months, I haven't been able to feel my muscles in my upper body, right? I haven't been able, I'm swimming now and I'm a little bit stand-up paddle surfing, but I really love feeling the resistance training, right? What it takes to grow muscle. And so I get to start doing that now. I get to start sup paddling, stand-up paddling, and lifting my wife, I weight lift by lifting my wife, in tandem surfing. Find something that takes courage and takes and makes you face resistance.
Well, I often use the wisdom of the movie Galaxy Quest to never give up, never surrender. So
I'll tell you what, Sean, have you ever read a Louis L'Amour Western?
My grandpa, that was his favorite. I never got into them, but
I had an uncle that had those books, and I thought only dumb people would read this. Honestly, it's, I was reading more advanced literature when I was in 8th or 9th grade. But when I became a commercial banker and I'd fly every week from town to town to town across the country, I saw those in the airport bookstores and I started to read them. I have all 105 or 115 Louis L'Amour leather bound. I got one a month, to read, because I was raising a family. I didn't have a lot of money. But Louis L'Amour books, they're all about the virtue. Riding for the brand, standing up for what's right, doing the right thing. Love is seeking the true good for the other person and doing that through self-donation. And that's what will make a man come alive. Doing the easy play, here in Hawaii, it's just, it makes me mad. I look out at Hawaii and I see younger men coming and they're kind of slumped forward with their head like this. And I know it's from playing computer games. There's more to life than that.
It's not just Hawaii, I don't think. That's
do the hard thing.
Yeah. And that's where we try to continue to challenge young men, just like the football coach that said you have more in you. Right. So Jeff Cavins talks about riding with the apostle.
I've heard of Jeff Cavins, that rookie. Yeah. Jeff Cavins, I heard of him.
Yeah. So what saint is your go-to guy in your posse that you have to have with you?
I know the saint that I dig on so much is Saint Athanasius, because he was a young man who in North Africa, who when he was a kid was baptizing his friends, just goofing around, and the bishop said, "Hey, come over here, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, we're just pretending like I'm a priest." And he goes, "Well, when you baptize them, did you say in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit?" He goes, "Yeah." Okay, then they're actually baptized. And that young man grew to become the man who battled the great Arian heresy. He was one of the main fighters, and he became the bishop of that town. And then he'd be thrown, and he's the guy who wrote the book about Saint Anthony of the Desert, one of the first great monks. And he loved going into the desert too, and just seeking the Lord and living an ascetic life. In fact, that's what he really wanted to do. But people kept calling, "Come out here, we need your help, we need your help." He would get in trouble with the Arians when they began to take over, and they would exile him into the desert. That's like throwing a Brer Rabbit into the briar patch. He loved it. Oh, good, I don't have to do anything but just pursue the Lord. But there's something about the way he stood up against all odds, and his desire to develop his intellect, to be intelligent in his faith. Because I think right now, and it's so cool right now for young people to be atheists. Wouldn't it be cool to know the 5 proofs from reason for the existence of God from Thomas Aquinas? I mean, wouldn't that just be cool to have knowledge like that? I mean, besides the fact that God invented cigars, that's the 6th reason probably. But
well, Bear, I want to thank you for joining us in the pub today. I don't know if you know, the origin of whiskey is a Gaelic word called Ishkabaha, which means water of life. And my prayer is that you and I continue to lead, especially men, to the true water of life.
Amen. My wife and I are going to go start up the Harley right now and go for a ride. But praise God for the water of life, for the living water. Amen. I miss you, Sean. I'll
we're
come.
gonna
I'll come.
we're gonna
I'll
get
go all the way
together
up there.
hopefully in the
I'll go
near
up there to have-
future.
I'll go up there just to have a cigar with you.
Well, I'm after I hit the stop button, I'm gonna hit you up for some cigars for our.
Oh yeah, man. We've got. Well, let me just say this to the people. We have our website's deepadventure.com. You can find out more about Long Ride Home, our TV show. You can find more out about the Bear Woznick Adventure radio show and podcast. But we have something, Sean, that some of the men might be interested in. We have several people from Canada, Bear's Man Cave, and you can join at deepadventure.com. And it's a secret Facebook group, so you can't join it by going in Facebook. You go to our website and join, and then you become part of this secret Facebook group. And men share their challenges, their inspirations, and we help each other. And about every 2 or 3 weeks, we have a big Zoom video chat meetup with everybody. So we've been doing it for 2 or 3 years now before Zoom became such an important thing in our lives. So go to deepadventure.com. We got so much going on. It's I can't say it all. Our web store is great. My books are there too. And if you go to the YouTube channel, Bear Woznick, you will find an interview with Sean Lynn.
Yes, actually, you might even find a couple of them there because we did a short one down in Dallas, and then I got to go to the Bear Cave. So, thanks again, Bear, and we will be seeing you again in the future. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of A Dram with Friends. Please go to our website, godsquad.ca, to support us. Look for us on all the platforms as a new podcast as well.